Well, she went from the campaign trail to the backwoods trails, and now she's returned to the propaganda trail. Hillary Clinton finally weighed in on what some are calling the crisis of fake news. The former Secretary of State and failed presidential candidate calls fake news an epidemic with real-world consequences. Now, I think it's much ado about nothing in the grand scheme of things, and I think the real issue really continues to be the mainstream media's war with conservatives. Moreover, the greatest weapon that the mainstream media has isn't fake news per se, but the subtle, nonstop dig, sort of like the old Chinese practice of Ling Chi, death by 1,000 cuts. More cynical observers, though, of the tactic would simply say that if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes the truth, even if it's proven wrong. So with that in mind, the mainstream media is facing a foe in Donald Trump, who has a very powerful, equally powerful platform via his social media outreach. So get ready for daily salvos, and believe me, there's going to be some direct challenges, and, well, some will be more subtle than others. Take, for instance, this morning, USA Today tweeted that Donald Trump invested $66 million into his campaign. What does that do? That suggests that he's looking for a financial return. I mean, think about it. For the most part, politicians spend money on their campaigns. They don't make an investment. It's misleading. We're going to see it, the misleading headlines in newspapers and magazines, and, of course, television banners. It's about being deliberately ignorant on the true state of the employment, for instance, in this country. People know the real deal. Or the negative impact on the poorest people in this country with things like higher minimum wage and those so-called Wall Street regulations. Now, the opposite is true with respect to the mainstream media and how it props and promotes the progressive agenda and, of course, the progressive heroes. For instance, The Economist magazine, it has this habit of using illustrations of Uncle Sam when bad things happen in America. It also has a habit of using photos of President Obama when there's good news or when they're backing some of his ideas. Joining me now to discuss it all, Concha and Adriana Cohen. Adriana, you know, I don't know when I had my Economist epiphany. It was a couple of years ago, but I'm like, golly, every time it's bad, it's Uncle Sam. Every time it's good, it's Barack Obama. But isn't this what's really happening in the media? It's not necessarily the fake news, but it's the subtleties over and over and over again.
That's right. I mean, you highlighted just two great examples there where they're favoring one party, they're skewing news and how they present it with images based on political party. And I just find it really hypocritical that Hillary Clinton would speak out against fake news when the Democrat Party are guilty of propagating misinformation campaigns and fake news themselves. I mean, look at what happened in Benghazi. The Obama administration and Hillary Clinton blamed the video and the protesters on the attack on our consulate when we knew and they knew that it was radical Islamic terrorists. Or what about the fake news story when Hillary Clinton said she was under enemy sniper fire in Benghazi? That was fake news. Or Susan Rice saying that Bo Bergdahl served with honor and distinction when he did not. He was a deserter who put our troops in harm's way. And so the Democrats are guilty. They live in glass houses when it comes to fake news. But of course, the media will just blame, you know, conservative websites like Breitbart or alt-right websites.
Sure. Joe, I mean, you've been following this longer than anybody, and you've pointed it out longer than anybody. I think it was Rich last night. I think Brian Williams said he was a little upset with with the fake news epidemic.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? The guy who was under sniper fire again in Iraq. Well, that's a big thing apparently of fake news, helicopters and whatnot. Can I piggyback on the last answer? Professor Gruber, do you remember him?
Sure.
Where he said that transparency is not an option when trying to sell Obamacare. We have to depend on the stupidity of the American people. You could go on and on, right? It happened with Ben Rhodes selling the Iran deal, where he talked about how reporters are so easy to dupe, we know exactly who to talk to. So that's why fake news is being so successful, because real news, and particularly news coming from the Obama administration, shaped a false narrative. Now, what is fake news in the end? It is the end consumer, readers, or your viewers getting, not yours, but viewers in general, getting false information intentionally. So whether it's somebody in their basement writing a false story or it's an administration pushing a false narrative, it's the same thing, and that's why we can't tell the difference between fake news and real news
But what about when it's propelled? Like some people are saying the modern-day version or epidemic of fake news was the time when CNN had the 4 women with their hands up A lot of people are saying that might be where the mainstream media have bought into the notion that they want to be the ones who push fake news.
Right. That was Ferguson, right? And hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah.
And that was a media myth that was disproven and was still pushed because it bought in ratings. It divided the country. People tuned in. It was an easy narrative, and they knew it was false, and they still continued to push it. It was pathetic.
You know, Adriana, you're in one of the oldest professions, the one that really has, I think, one of the sort of the job of trying to be honest with the American public. But is it all going away? I mean, is it, how will people differentiate and even know real from fake in the next few years or days?
You know, it's a really serious matter, and I've advised my teenagers, my children at home, to say, hey, you've got to be really savvy consumers of media and news. You have to seek all sides, go to countless different websites and news sources, because what we see on the internet or social media or even television, oftentimes people get it wrong, whether it's intentionally or it's sloppy investigative reporting. Like, look what happened with the Hands Up, Don't Shoot is a great example. You know, outlets rushed to get those ratings, and then the Justice Department came back months later and said it never happened.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of media never came back to say, hey, we were wrong. They kept the narrative going.
Right.
Again, watch out for the fake news, but death by 1,000 cuts, that's their real weapon, too.
Ling Chu, right? Ling Chin?
Yes.
You know it's Friday.
All right, guys, thanks a lot.